Let's begin with some interesting connections between the characters from Elden Ring and A Song of Ice and Fire, both narratives relating to author George R.R. Martin. A Song of Ice and Fire was adapted into a television series on HBO called Game of Thrones. This series takes place after Robert's Rebellion, which resulted in the end of the Targaryen dynasty in the Seven Kingdoms and the beginning of King Robert Baratheon's reign. Robert was known to be as strong as a bull, fearless in battle, and possessed a powerful battlefield voice. Although Robert was a great warrior, he was a lackluster king. He found business concerning coin, crop, or justice to be tedious. As king, he barely attended small council sessions, preferring to hunt and hawk instead. In many ways, King Robert Baratheon reminded me of Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. Godfrey, like Robert, was a lord of the battlefield, and just as Robert was known for his warhammer, Godfrey was known for his battle axe. Godfrey was once a ferocious warrior, but when he vowed to become a lord, he took upon his back the lion Siraj, the lord of beasts, to suppress his ceaseless lust for battle. Siraj took on the role of regent for Godfrey, acting as a counselor and guide for the Golden Order. A regent is defined as a person appointed to administer a country because the monarch is a minor, or is absent, or is incapacitated. The fact that Godfrey gave the role of regent to Siraj mirrored how Robert was content with leaving matters of the realm to his small council. Both characters lived for the thrill of battle, but once the battle had ended, their purpose ended as well. Robert states that he was never so alive as when he was winning the throne, or so dead as after he had won it. While Godfrey led the war against the giants, faced the Stormlord alone, and then there came a moment when his last worthy enemy fell. It was then, as the story is told, that the hue of Lord Godfrey's eyes faded. Both characters also seemed to satiate their love for violence with the spectacle of battle performances via the Colosseum and tournaments in both Elden Ring and A Song of Ice and Fire, respectively. Robert was quite promiscuous and has fathered multiple illegitimate children. Godfrey may have been similar in this regard as well, as the character Nefeli Lu shares her last name with Godfrey, aka Horalu, implying some sort of kinship. The nature of their relationship is unknown, but Kenneth Haidt deems Nefeli to be of proper lineage, implying that she either is a daughter or descendant of Horalu. Nefeli's quest involves giving her the ashes of the Stormhawk King, the ancient sovereign of Stormveil. After receiving the ashes, she states, "In this ash, I could smell the ancient storm. It reminds me of my first hawk." As mentioned, Robert also loved to hawk. He even owned a Gryfalcon in his youth, named Thunderclap. The Stormhawk King, Nefeli, and Godfrey are all tied to Stormveil Castle. Stormveil Castle perches atop a cliff overlooking Limgrave. Currently it is a stronghold for Godric the Grafted, but long ago it was ruled by an ancient king, back when the true storm raged. The castle is heavily guarded and patrolled by banished knights, exiled soldiers, and warhawks with blades grafted to their talons. Meanwhile, in the lands of Westeros, there are the Stormlands, a land of harsh mountains, stony shores, and verdant forests. The Stormlands are ruled from the castle of Storm's End by House Baratheon. Their seat, Storm's End, is an ancient castle, raised by the Storm Kings from the now extinct House Durrandon. While on the subject of House Baratheon, I felt that Stannis, Robert's younger brother, reminded me of Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy. Stannis is a serious, stubborn, rarely forgiving hard man with a strong sense of duty and justice. He has never had the affection of nobles or small folk, but he can command fierce loyalty from soldiers and knights. Stannis is quoted saying, "Kings have no friends, only subjects and enemies." During Robert's rebellion, Storm's End was besieged, and Stannis' soldiers only avoided starvation because the Onion Knight was able to smuggle cargo into the fortress. However, the situation was so dire that Stannis was advised to keep his prisoners alive, as his garrison may have to resort to cannibalism. Under the Golden Order, Rykard was a ruthless Justicar, who commanded a company of inquisitors. His inquisitors persecuted and tortured those considered heretics to the Order. After Rykard abandoned the Order, he launched a campaign against the Erdtree. Rykard's ambitions marked him a worthy sovereign, and drew many followers to his cause who admired his heroic aspirations. Due to his actions, the Golden Order besieged Volcano Manor in what is now known as the most appalling Battle of the Shattering, an unending war with no glory, which forced many to succumb to cannibalism. Stannis and Rykard are both stern judges of men, yet they dishonor themselves to seek vengeance against those that have wronged them. Stannis, believing that he has a claim to the Iron Throne, debased his honor by succumbing to the dark arts of shadow binding, allowing for the creation of shadow assassins, and using blood magic associated with the Lord of Light. Quick side note, the shadow assassins of A Song of Ice and Fire reminded me of the baleful shadows that hunt Rhaeni on behalf of the Two Fingers. Westeros' current dominating belief system is in the faith of the Seven. meaning that many within the Seven Kingdoms would view Stannis' belief in the Lord of Light as blasphemous. Meanwhile, Rykard discovered the ancient magma hexes of Mount Gelmir, which are viewed as blasphemous because the hexes draw their power from fire. The Golden Order claims anything that derives power from flame to be heretical because it could hurt the Erd Tree, the Order's primary source of belief. Rykard doubles down on his blasphemous ambitions and feeds himself to the Elder Serpent, Egle, an ancient enemy to the Erd Tree. After the Elder Serpent devoured Rykard, the birth of the man-serpents followed. One of Rykard's children, created via the birthing rituals in Volcano Manor, is Zorayas. Zorayas uses a type of illusionary magic to conceal her serpentine appearance, akin to a form of glamour. Zorayas hides her true form because she is told by Tanith that people are cruel and wouldn't accept her. Rykard is a family man, so to speak, and in the same regard, so is Stannis. Like Rykard, Stannis also has a daughter, named Shireen. Shireen is regarded as a sad, sweet, gentle child that was afflicted with Greyscale at birth. Her condition has left half of her cheek and most of her neck covered in cracked and flaking gray and black stony skin. The Free Folk consider people who survive Greyscale unclean and prefer to euthanize them rather than take the chance that they may live on to infect others. Just as Tanith warns Zorayas about showing her true form to avoid the cruelty of others, Shireen is also born with a scaly appearance that others, notably Free Folk, find to be unclean and think that their death is a societal necessity. Side note, some speculate that Greyscale is a form of fungal infection, as the methods used to treat the disease includes vinegar and lime, both common home remedies for fungal infections. Moreover, areas that are in damp climates like the Iron Islands and Dragonstone are more prone to the disease. Keep in mind, high moisture environments encourage fungal growth. Greyscale is also found in the Sorrows, a location known for its foul fogs and waters. The Shrouded Lord, also known as His Great Grace and the Prince of Sorrows, is a mysterious figure said to inhabit the region. Although many say that he is just a legend, others believe that there have been numerous Shrouded Lords, and that when one dies, another takes his place. Albeit not a strong connection, the Shrouded Lord reminded me of Margot, the Veiled Monarch. Being born as an accursed omen, Margot was shunned by the Golden Order and could never be accepted as the monarch of Lundel, regardless of his parentage. Thus he concealed his true identity with the use of a veil. Despite the fact that he had been reviled as an accursed fiend by the Golden Order, Margot swore to protect the Erd Tree, and by extension, the capital. Hornsent Grandam mentions the curse of the Omen if you attack her, stating it is a curse placed upon Marika and her children from the ire of the sacred beast as a form of punishment against Mesmers, aka Marika's persecution of the Hornsent. The Omen in truth contained the divine primordial energy of the Crucible, an ancient melding of life. Dragons are fantastic physical representations of the Crucible within the Lands Between, as aspects of the Crucible are all features shared by dragons. Horns, claws, scales, tails, feathers, and wings. Omen are occasionally referred to as Imigo, which can mean abominable child, unwanted child, or shunned child. The Omen-bearing items are called Mizuko, which can refer to a newborn baby or an aborted, stillborn, or miscarried fetus. Most Omen have their horns exorcised and are shackled into the sewers below Lendel. All are unwanted children of the Golden Order that share aspects of the Crucible, aspects shared with ancient dragons. Within A Song of Ice and Fire, there are a few instances of Targaryen miscarriages, where the children are born with features akin to dragons. Daenerys Targaryen's son, Rhaego, was born scaled like a lizard, with the stub of a tail and small leather wings, like the wings of a bat. One of Maegor Targaryen's babies was a stillborn without arms and legs, and another of his babies was birthed eyeless, with small wings. Rhaenyra and Daemon Targaryen's daughter was a stillborn as well, malformed with a stubby, scaled tail. Theories as to why Targaryens are associated with stillborns containing features of dragons range from merely propaganda created to damage the individual's reputation to Valyrian blood magic and dragon gene splicing. Gogossos is a ruined city on the Isle of Tears, the largest of the Basilisk Isles. In the past, the city was used as a penal colony by the Dragon Lords of Valyria. In the dungeons of Gogossos, torturers devised new torments. In the flesh pits, blood sorcery of the darkest sort was practiced, as beasts were mated to slave women to bring forth twisted, half-human children. The Targaryen stillborns mentioned earlier could relate to these dark blood rituals that took place in the colony. Some theorize that Valyria practiced genetic splicing, and that dragons are the result of combining fireworms with wyverns. All of this to say that blood magic seemingly played a large part in the serpentine stillborns birthed by the Targaryens in A Song of Ice and Fire. The Valyrians were more than just dragon lords. They practiced blood magic and other dark arts, delving deep into the earth for secrets and twisting the flesh of beasts and men to fashion monstrous and unnatural chimeras. Is it possible that the stillborns, with dragon-like features, are remnants of a cursed bloodline, leading all the way back to the actions of old Valyria? In this way, the babies born of the Targaryen line that contained scales, wings, and tails reminded me of the babies born to the nobles and Marika herself in the lands between that contained similar features. Albeit purely speculation, both cases seem to be related to bloodlines, and both of these curses can be linked to the sins of the past. Old Valyria's dark rituals of twisting together the flesh of man and beast reminded me of the birthing rituals that created the man-serpents of Mount Gelmir. Although both events are veiled in mystery, I believe there to be a connection, as both events are related to blood, fire, and birthing rituals used to create new hybrids. The arcane knowledge of blood magic and how to craft hybrids may have been passed down to Old Valyria from Asshai, as Asshai histories say that a people so ancient they had no name first tamed dragons in the shadow, and then brought them to Valyria. Asshai is a mysterious port city located in the Shadowlands of Essos, one of the most remote regions of the known world. Few travel to the Shadowlands, and even fewer return. Asshai is a grim place, constructed mostly of pitch-black stone that seems to consume sunlight, and its great walls could contain multiple city-states combined. The population of Asshai, however, is no more than that of a good-sized market town, and by night, only 1 in 10 buildings shows a light. All who dwell there wear masks or veils, and the Dothraki believe that those from the city are the spawn of shadows, and hold them in contempt and fear. Within the lands of the shadows grows ghost grass, a pale invasive plant that seems to choke out all other flora. The Shadowlands are one of the last homes of magic in the known world. No religious or arcane practice is forbidden in Asshai. For instance, blood mages, practitioners of blood magic, are welcomed in Asshai. Not all blood mages came from Dragonlord families, although there was some overlap between the two groups. Septim Barth speculated that blood mages of Valyria employed wyvern stock to create dragons. Blood mages are also associated with the flesh pits of Gogossos. Blood magic is extremely powerful, but requires sacrifice to use, like how Melisandre uses Stannis' life force, aka life fire, to create his shadow assassins, or how Dany's 3 dragons are born by sacrificing the lives of 3 others. The sacrifice needed to power blood magic reminded me of the Thorn Sorcerers of Elden Ring, and the requirement of blood sacrifice related to the Formless Mother. Melisandre, the Red Priestess of Stannis Baratheon's court, learned her dark arts like blood magic in the Shadowlands. Red priests and priestesses are the clergy of the religion of R'hllor. Melisandre joined with Stannis because she believes him to be Azor Ahai reborn. In short, R'hllor, aka the Lord of Light, is the god of life that is locked in an eternal struggle with the Great Other, the god of death, over the fate of the world. A struggle that, according to ancient prophecies from the books of Asshai, will only end when Azor Ahai, the messianic figure, returns wielding a flaming sword called Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes, and raises dragons from stone. While conversing with fellow YouTuber Jack the Mimic about connections Elden Ring has to A Song of Ice and Fire, he told me about a theory he crafted related to the prophecy of Azor Ahai, Rhaegar Targaryen, and the Great Other. Rhaegar Targaryen was a firm believer in the prophecy of the prince that was promised. Originally, Rhaegar thought that he was the prince that was promised, and when he was older, he believed his infant son was the messianic figure. The prophecy itself is engraved onto a Valyrian dagger that reads, "From my blood come the prince that was promised, and his will be the song of ice and fire." Superficially, Rhaegar connects to Godwyn, as they are both beautiful and beloved by many, especially the common folk. Both characters are also tied to dragons. Rhaegar was a Targaryen, a dragon lord family that descended from the Valyrian freehold, while Godwyn the Golden defeated and befriended the ancient dragon Fortisax, an event that gave rise to the ancient dragon cult in the capital. Both characters' deaths acted as catalysts for large-scale conflicts. Rhaegar's death eventually led to the War of the Five Kings, where the great houses of Westeros fought to gain the Iron Throne, while Godwyn's death led to the Shattering War, where the demigods fought with each other to become the next Elden Lord. Although Jack believes that the connections between Rhaegar and Godwyn go even deeper, as he theorized that Godwyn, like Rhaegar, could have been influenced by a prophecy or a savior complex, which is why he allowed himself to be sacrificed on the Night of the Black Knives, essentially becoming an anti-Azor Ahai. Godwyn was a powerful demigod, able to befriend dragons and harness their ancient red lightning incantations, yet in the image of Godwyn being slain, he is on his knees, as if he is willingly submitting to death. Plus, there's the finger reader crone in the deep root depths that refers to Godwyn as a martyr for destined death. A martyr is a person who is killed because of their religious or other beliefs. Jack thinks that Godwyn's title of the Golden is not only used to identify his authority within the Golden Order, but moreover associating him with the Sun, or even possibly the Sun Realm. The Sun Realm was a city once crowned by the Sun, but its seat in the Sun has long since faded. Many have speculated about the Sun Realm. Some believe it to be in reference to Far Missoula, others say it could relate to the Land of Shadows past. It is possible that Castle Sol was once the seat of the sun prior to Godwyn's death, as Sol means sun, and the castle was used by Mikola in an attempt to give Godwyn a proper death via an eclipse. Within the lands between, the eclipsed sun, drained of color, is the protective star of soulless demigods, and has the ability to keep destined death at bay. It's possible that the Night of the Black Knives occurred on an eclipse, Godwyn being the sun and Rani being the moon. If it were not for Rani's intervention, then Godwyn would have experienced a full death, thus being a martyr for destined death. Rani, the moon, intervened with the ritual of sacrificing Godwyn, the sun, meaning the sun and moon came together to form an eclipse, which kept destined death at bay, thus neither of them died a true death. As Godwyn's soul perished, he became the Prince of Death, and gave rise to those who live in death. Those who live in death fall outside of the principles of the Golden Order, and it is for this reason that the Golden Order fundamentalists known as Hunters are tasked with exterminating them. Tibia Mariners have the ability to summon those that live within death by using their long horns, and Zuli the Witch discovered that the internal game file for the Tibia Mariners loosely translates to Night King's Kin. The Night King could be in reference to the HBO adaptation of A Song of Ice and Fire, in which the leader of the White Walkers shares the same name. As mentioned, Mariners summon the undead, while White Walkers can resurrect dead men or creatures as whites. When defeated, Mariners drop Deathroot, which grew off the Prince of Death, Godwyn. In the show Game of Thrones, the Night King obtains a Lich Dragon as he resurrects Viserion, while Fortisax becomes a Lich Dragon as he attempts to save Godwyn. In both narratives of A Song of Ice and Fire and Elden Ring, life versus death are crucial to the overarching plot, as they form warring factions to obtain eternal victory over the other. Also, spoiler alert, Rhaegar Targaryen is Jon Snow's father, therefore Jon is the true heir to the Iron Throne, while Godwyn's bloodline is the most notable in the Lands Between as he produced the Golden Line, thus both characters are connected via bloodlines to great houses. Godwyn acts as a foil to Azor Ahai, both being saviors, one for the living and one for the dead. That being said, both the narratives of Elden Ring and A Song of Ice and Fire are rarely black and white. The White Walkers of A Song of Ice and Fire may seem monstrous, yet Archmeister Fomus speculates that the others were a tribe of the First Men who had been living far in the north. The others forge their own weapons and armor, they have their own language, and can possibly utilize magic, meaning that they aren't monsters, they're a culture. Those who live in death are treated in the same way. They are looked down on by the Golden Order, yet according to Rogier, those who live in death have committed no offense, have every right to live, and have simply touched upon a flaw in the Order. Please keep in mind, this theory was created pre-DLC. With the additional insight gained in the Land of Shadow, Jack's theory now reflects the narrative of Radon serving the role of the prince that was promised instead of Godwyn. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to cover everything I originally wanted to in today's video, but I can assure you there are even more connections that I will share with you in part 3, the final video discussing interesting connections between Elden Ring and A Song of Ice and Fire. Thank you so much for your time today, and as always, I sincerely hope you all have a wonderful week.